They mocked his slow reload until he killed faster than an MG. They laughed first, not loudly, not openly. That would have been dangerous. But you can hear it in a man's voice when he doesn't believe you'll matter. They laughed because his rifle was old, because his bolt was stiff, because every shot meant a hand movement, a pause, a rhythm that looked slow next to men spraying fire from machine guns. They called it the slow reload. They said he'd never keep up in a real fight. They said he'd be a spectator while the guns did the work. And then the fight came, and something happened that nobody forgot. Not because it was loud, not because it was flashy, but because it was precise, relentless, and terrifyingly fast in the only way that matters. Not rounds per minute, results per minute. The unit had been moved quietly, late afternoon, while the sky was still bright enough to see the ground and dark enough to hide intention. It wasn't a glamorous assignment. A narrow road, a stubborn ridgeline, a village that mattered only because it sat on the map between two larger places. They were told the enemy might probe at night, maybe push in force at dawn. "Hold the line," the officer said, as if the line was a rope you could grip with your hands. The men understood what that really meant. It meant waiting. It meant cold. It meant listening for footsteps that weren't yours. And it meant trusting the weapons you had, whether you liked them or not. That's where he stood out. He didn't carry the newest rifle. He didn't have the smoothest action. He didn't brag about speed. He carried something older, something simple, something he'd rebuilt so many times it felt like an extension of his arms. And his squad treated it like a joke. "Bolt action?" one of them said. "What is this, a museum?" He didn't argue. He just checked his ammo. He checked his sling. He checked the small, quiet details nobody jokes about after they save your life. The truth about machine guns is simple. They change the room. When a machine gun fires, everything else becomes secondary. Men stop thinking in paragraphs and start thinking in single words. Down, move, stop. So the squad's logic was easy. If trouble comes, the machine gun will talk. Everyone else will follow. A rifleman with a bolt? He'll shoot a little, then disappear under the noise. That's what they believed. And that belief lasted, right up until the moment noise became the problem. The first sign wasn't gunfire, it was silence. A weird gap where you expected the night to have its normal voice. No insects, no distant barking, no random crack of something shifting in the woods. Just a dead stillness, like the air was holding its breath. He noticed it first, not because he had magic instincts, because he actually listened. He raised a hand, small signal. The men around him looked annoyed, like he was interrupting the normal routine of being bored. Then they heard it, a soft metallic tap, not close, but not far enough to ignore. Then another, and then a sound that every soldier learns fast. Cloth against brush, a foot sliding in dirt. Someone out there wasn't lost. They were coming. The machine gunner shifted position. The assistant gunner checked the belt. The squad leader whispered, "Wait for it." They all stared into the darkness, like the darkness owed them an answer. And then a shape moved between trees. Not a full silhouette, just a darker smear in a darker world. The machine gunner tensed. The bolt action man did something different. He didn't stare, he aimed, because staring is what you do when you're trying to see. Aiming is what you do when you already decided. The first shot was his, a single crack that felt almost rude in the quiet. For half a second, nobody reacted. Then the darkness reacted. Multiple flashes burst from the tree line. The squad dropped behind cover. The machine gun tried to answer, but the angle was wrong. The ridgeline forced the gun to fire into a narrow slice, and the enemy wasn't in the slice. They were spread out, smart, low, moving like they'd done this before. That's when the squad leader finally understood something. A machine gun is powerful, but only where it can reach, and right now, it couldn't reach enough. The bolt-action rifle could, because it didn't need to flood a sector, it needed to touch a point. He fired again. Cycle, click, bolt back, forward, lock. It looked slow, but the second shot came faster than anyone expected. Then a third, then a fourth. Not random. Each shot was spaced like a heartbeat, and each shot forced the enemy to react. A man who is pinned by machine gun fire keeps his head down because the air is full of risk. A man who is being hit by precise rifle fire keeps his head down because his brain starts whispering a different thought. It's not the air that's dangerous, it's the one person who can pick you out. The squad leader shouted for the machine gun to reposition. The gunner crawled, heavy weapon dragging like an anchor. The enemy fire intensified. More flashes, more movement. This wasn't a probe anymore. This was a push, and it was happening in the exact shape that punished heavy weapons. Quick changes, multiple angles, close terrain. A machine gun is a conversation. A bolt-action rifle is a decision. And he kept deciding. Shot, cycle, shot. His rhythm didn't speed up like panic. It stayed steady like work. That's the part that scared them later when they talked about it. Not the shots, the calm. A grenade landed somewhere to the left, too far to do damage, close enough to shake dirt. The squad leader barked orders. The machine gun finally got a clean lane and opened up. The sound filled the night. It should have solved everything, but it didn't, because the enemy wasn't trying to win a shooting contest. They were trying to collapse the position by forcing the squad into a predictable response. The machine gun fired, the squad huddled behind it, and the enemy began to move around the edges. And that's when the bolt-action man did the thing that made his slow reload irrelevant. He didn't fight the noise, he fought the movement. He aimed at the men who weren't shooting, the ones slipping through brush, the ones moving low, trusting the machine gun's attention. The men who always survive if you only shoot at the loudest threat. One shot, movement stops. Another, movement stops again. And now the squad's position wasn't collapsing, it was hardening. Because every time the enemy tried to flank, something snapped out of the dark and removed the attempt. The squad leader looked over, eyes wide. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The message was obvious. That old rifle was keeping them alive. The fight stretched into long minutes, the worst kind. Not the fast chaos of a sudden explosion, the slow grind where you feel time, and time feels like it's enjoying itself. A man behind cover can endure seconds. Minutes test your mind. At some point, the machine gun barrel began to heat. The gunner's breathing turned harsh. The belt slowed. He heard the dreaded words, "low on ammo." The enemy heard it too. Maybe not the words, but the tempo. Enemy fire surged again. They sensed the machine gun was tiring. They pushed. This is where most positions break. Not because men are cowards, because physics is honest. If you lose volume of fire at the wrong moment, the other side advances. And when they advance, everything becomes close. And when everything is close, mistakes become final. The squad leader tightened his grip and prepared for something desperate. And the bolt-action man did the opposite of desperation. He adjusted. Not his weapon, his targets. He stopped shooting at whoever was nearest. He started shooting at whoever was leading, the man that others followed, the one whose movement caused others to move. It wasn't a visible rank thing, it was a pattern thing. When you watch long enough, you see it. Someone steps forward, others step after. Someone hesitates, others hesitate. He picked that person out in the darkness, like he was reading a sentence, and then he erased the word. The push slowed. The enemy didn't stop, but they lost the clean certainty they had seconds ago. That uncertainty bought time. Time bought space. Space bought survival. The squad leader shouted, "Keep firing!" The machine gun sputtered, then roared again. But it wasn't the machine gun that was controlling the battlefield. It was that steady rhythm. Crack, bolt, crack. Slow if you count. Fast if you measure effect. The enemy began to do something every fighter does when the plan isn't working. They grew louder, more shots, more yelling, noise to cover confusion, and confusion is where he was strongest. At some point, one of the squad's men crawled towards him, trying to help, maybe pass ammo,
maybe take a turn, maybe just see what he was doing. He reached him and froze, because up close, the slow reload wasn't slow at all. It was efficient. The bolt moved like a trained reflex, no wasted motion, no dramatic gestures. His hands didn't fumble, his eyes didn't hunt. He fired as if he was already on the next shot before the last one finished echoing. The helper whispered, "How?" He didn't answer. He just kept working. The fight shifted again. The enemy stopped trying to flood the ridge. They started trying to locate him because they understood the truth. A machine gun can scare you. A marksman can end you. And if you can remove the marksman, everything becomes easier. So they began to push small pairs forward, low and careful, trying to get close enough for a clear shot. That's a smart tactic.